Y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. And I know it's been a few days since I posted. So I think the last day was Wednesday, and here we are at Saturday. And believe it or not, there's two things about this post. Number one, this is the longest that I have gone consecutively without posting since I began this at Thanksgiving in 2024. Secondly, and more significantly, this is post number 600 for me. And I'm glad you're here for this. It's going to be a little longer because I got a lot to cover. I'm going to connect some dots and bring some things together and share about my experience so far of the World Cup and how it is for me and maybe others a truly spiritual experience. Before that, though, let's begin as we always begin by recognizing, realizing, celebrating that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So before I go any further, and I think it's important, and I've talked about this before, but I want to expand a little bit on the more. All right. And I think when we look deeply beyond the surface into the nature of everything, we see that there is more. There is always more. There is always depth. We can always go further and deeper and are often surprised at what we find there. The more, and I like to capitalize the T and the MORE, that is the creator of all that. That is the element, the aspect, the person, the being, whatever you want to think about it, but it's what is behind and within the more as we drill down. And what we find when we see the more in everything is we see connections among everything, right? And there's so many metaphors to this. Think of ecosystems, think of our bodies, think of our social media networks, think of anything, pipes in our house, the wires, how connected everything is, and how it is not just about individuals. That individual circuit in your circuit breaker box is important, but it only really gathers its meaning in the midst of everything else, the wires, the power, and so forth, right? So I think of that connectivity, that connection is, again, the more, right? Because what is the most connective aspect of everything is consciousness, right? Self-awareness, consciousness, and also love, attraction. Now, there's other forces too, entropy and other things, propulsion and so forth. But the most powerful force in everything is that connectivity, that attraction. So why is this important for us? Because the World Cup in general, and I'll talk about what it means for me, but in general, it is a moment of connectivity. It is a moment where we see that this game, this beautiful game of soccer, which is so simple and so freely and commonly played everywhere. I've heard it described as a language. You know, you go anywhere in the world outside of America, to be honest, pretty much anywhere else, and there's a soccer game, a pickup game, and you can walk right up and, they might be better than you. You might not want to walk right up, but there's that language, right? And what we have here, especially this year in 26, and I got to be honest, y'all, I was really skeptical going into this World Cup. And I was kind of dreading it, kind of resentful. Like, why does it have to happen when, that a dictator here is in charge? Well, I'll tell you what, there's a dictator in charge of FIFA too. So, you know, there's like finds like. We've seen that, right? But I am convinced that this is what we need right now. And by we, I mean Americans and me personally as well. And I'll get to a quote here in just a second that has kind of helped me to frame this and to think about this. Before that, though, that's the global 48 countries coming together, playing, and fans from all over the world. And most importantly, and I think this is not to be lost, even if people aren't traveling to the cups from countries that there's war or famine or illness or whatever, or just, blockages that our government has put down, there are plenty of those native fans, those fans from those countries, the diaspora, if you will, who will be rooting those teams on, if not in the stadiums. And the stadia are very important, very expensive to get into, and that's a problem here as well. Nevertheless, they'll be rooting for them in homes and backyards and pubs and bars and public gatherings like one I was at last night. And they will be celebrating because in many cases, there are these diaspora communities that are as large as some of the communities or cities back in, the old country, whether it was Europe or Africa or Asia, whatever it might be, right? So many facts are out there about this. For example, I did not know until the other day that LA has the largest Iranian population outside of Tehran, right? Single city. It's the second largest Iranian city in the world. And there's many more examples of those based on different cities, big cities here in the US especially. So that's what it means globally. What does it mean to me? I'll keep this brief, y'all. I measure my life in World Cups. I was 24 years old in 1994 when the cup was last here on the shores. I went to 2 games at Stanford University. I was living in the Bay Area at that time. I took my dad to one of them. One of them was Brazil playing Russia. I saw Cameroon play, the oldest man to play in the World Cup. I don't know if he's still the oldest man. I have to look that up. But 46, I believe he was. He's 10 years younger than I am today. Roger Mila from Cameroon, I saw him play that game. Made a huge impact on me. And every single cup since then, I have watched diligently and remember where I was, what I was doing, and measure my life by that. Truly, 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 truly. And here we are again. And I get to make those memories again. Those are starting already. The opening game against Mexico, I watched that after work. Was leading a training, let him out a little early, and put that on the TV. And then I watched Canada yesterday, Friday, and then went out with my good buddy Mark. He's my soccer buddy, my political buddy, just my buddy in general. And he and I went to a little recreation or city urban kind of party area, and Dublin Bridge Park for those of you who are local here in Columbus. And we had a great soccer watch party. And seeing the diversity that was there, yeah, it was mostly white people like myself, which, is great. There's a lot of us around. I also saw African folks. I saw Muslim folks with hijabs. In fact, toward the end of the game, Mark and I, right behind where we were watching one of the 3 screens that they had set up, there was a young group of young Muslim women right behind me. And it was really, really exciting. The U.S. did a great game. There's so much I could say about that. But this isn't a sports podcast. What this is, though, is a spiritual podcast and a podcast about communion and connection and spirituality. And again, I think when we are connected there at the game last night, yeah, it was a fun experience, but it was a spiritual experience for me because it nurtured my core. It was about that connectivity. It brought my past, present together. And importantly, it brings the future as well, a potential future, because the future is never assured, right? This weekend, y'all, there's going to be 3 big sporting events, and I want to pay attention to each of them. Yesterday, we saw soccer, the U.S. game. Hopefully, the fans are going to jump on board here in the U.S. There's that funny commercial, the bandwagon with Will Ferrell, the Lay's commercial, and hopefully that will happen. Tonight, the Knicks hopefully will wrap up a playoff game, a series, get their first title since the 1970s. And what an amazing story that has been. What was it? I forget what night it was, but the first game in Madison Square Gardens, I think it was Tuesday, right? Maybe Monday, I forget. But T-Rump shows up, hogs the spotlight, gets booed, bad juju, and they lose. The other night, he's not there, fortunately, and they come from 23, 29 points behind. Crazy, biggest comeback in history. Can they wrap it up tonight in front of their home fans? Well, we'll see. We'll see. I got a feeling they will. I think they're a team of destiny. So we will watch that. And then tomorrow, of course, Flag Day. T-Rump turns 80 years old. We got to stress that because he hates it. People always kind of joke about, happy birthday when you're old. You say, oh, it's better than the alternative, right? I don't think it is for him. I think he's glad he's alive, to be sure. I think he's barely hanging in there. But 80, I think, is just a thorn. It's it's a jab at him. So, and we're going to see that monstrosity. I've avoided those pictures. I'm going to avoid that because I don't want to see that. I don't want that image in my brain. And maybe I need to have that. Maybe we all need to have that. Because what we are seeing, what we will see this weekend is a contrast and competing Americas, right? I mean, what we will see on tomorrow is going to be about blood and fighting and men, domination and violence, right? And let's face it, y'all, the MAGAites, many far right-wing conservatives, they're all about that. That's their thing, right? And I was reminded of that today. Just a little side story. I was in my neighborhood and somebody came to my door. Fortunately, I wasn't at the door. I was walking my dog. And I could see it was this young woman and she was selectively going house to house. She didn't look like a sales type, cable sales or whatever comes by. And there were two of them. And I was walking my dog and I saw one of them. I said hello. And she says, would you like this? She handed me a little, flyer. And there was actually one on my door as well. The person left it on my door. And I take a look at it, it's a little flyer thing, professionally done, slick, all that kind of stuff, right? And it talks about anti-abortion. And it says, women don't want abortion, and here's these resources. All right, front side, pretty good, right? I flip it over, and it's those fetus pictures that you see, right? You see them on highways, you see them, I've seen them from planes, this is what an aborted fetus looks like, right? And I was just like, God, why do you do this? I've always felt that. Here's an axe to grind, y'all. So I'll keep this rant short. Why do they do that? Why do they put that? And how cruel is that? That I flip that and I see that. And, their argument would be, if I asked them about it, is, well, it's reality. And yes, it is. We also don't show, and they don't show, the MAGAites don't want to show even soldiers' bodies coming home draped in flat coffins. They don't even want to show that. And we as a society have decided we're not going to broadcast victims of car crashes. We're not going to broadcast murder victims. We're not going to broadcast Sandy Hook children with, torn apart by assault rifles, right? We don't do that. But yet they feel that they can do that with those pictures. All right, y'all, I'm going to wrap up here on a positive note, a hopeful note, and just a reminder of what we are seeing. Again, these three sports, especially the U.S. men's and the fight on the White House lawn, our White House lawn, a contrast. I want to end with Mayor Zoran Mamdani. I'm going to put a link to this as well as a link. You can check out this podcast, this video series, Men in Blazers. Huge fan, a lot of fun to watch and to listen to and to learn about. And they had Mamdani on, and they asked him, Raj, who's the host, asked him, what is your hope or your wish or for the world and America in this World Cup? And here's just the first part of what the mayor said. America's mayor. We used to call New York that, right? America's mayor. He said, for Americans to see ourselves and our country as we could be and not as we are today. I'll tell you what, y'all, we're going to see three sporting events that I think represent three different ways that we are today. And the question is, which one do we want to be? Which one is the future? Which one is more life-giving? Which one is more loving and hopeful? And which one do you want? I'll tell you which one I want. I think I know perhaps if you're watching and listening, which one you want. And the question then becomes, this will be our last question, what are we willing to do for it? It's never about violence. It's never about using force. It is about using our voice and our pocketbooks and our labor and all of those things. Because we're going to need it, y'all, later on, after this summer, into the fall, into the midterms. All right, y'all, I've said way too much. I got to get to work. I got to eat some lunch. Let's end as we always end. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, O God, not ours, be done. All right, y'all. Be bold, be well, blessing and good. Hold fast, y'all.